Welcome to Season 5 of the Lead with Coffee podcast, where we continue the journey into how you can change the culture in your business and your home through simple leadership practices. Grab a cup of coffee and get ready to join into today's conversation. Welcome back to Lead with Coffee. We are so grateful for the amount of people that have responded to last week's podcast, or 2 weeks ago, I guess now. And
it was last week.
Was it last week?
It was last week.
It feels like a long time ago. On the launch of the barn, launching a small business. And what we found is that it's this, we run a small business already. We've been talking about it for years on the Lead with Coffee podcast. And launching this new one, it felt small. It didn't seem like it was something that was enough to share yet. But the feedback we're getting is you want a deeper dive into how to actually launch a small business. And so that's what today is. Today is part 2 of launching the small business of the barn. And so on the last podcast, we talked about our story of how we launched and how we went from nothing to revenue generating in 6 months. And we had key tips on how to understand your market, how to set up your business plan, how to develop your marketing strategy, and just successful tips for launch day, like what we were doing behind the scenes while we were still building the business model. So today we want to go in a little bit deeper and talk about those initial steps to set up your business the right way. So we'll talk about how you obtain your fictitious business name, your business license, your domain name, and all the nitty gritty. If you're thinking about setting up your business and following your big dream.
Yeah, let me go back again. You started with it talking about people. We got a lot of feedback from last week's podcast, and I want to pause on that for a second because we truly appreciate that. We really appreciate that people are listening, number one, but more importantly, that people are inspired. That what we are doing, and that's kind of the whole point on this, it's a leadership podcast, but we want to inspire people, and whether that be on leadership, whether that be on the things that we're doing, that to me is like the ultimate goal. And so I just appreciate everyone out there that has listened to it, that has shared it, and that we're helping make a difference in their lives. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we got such great feedback on this one, it's just really special. And so again, now we're going to take a deeper dive into the other questions that came about from last week's podcast. So that was our commercial break, and we can go back to regularly scheduled program now.
No, I think it's good. I think what we realized is the power of sharing your story, and we can do a whole podcast on that, and that might be one coming up. But in sharing our story, we realized there's so many other people in a similar situation where they have this dream and they're looking for a community of people that understand how overwhelming it is to start.
Yeah.
I think that's the piece.
Absolutely.
And that's what we talked about a lot on the last podcast. If you didn't listen to part 1, go back and listen because it will help set the framework for part 2. Because you have to start somewhere. You have this dream, you have this inner desire to start a business, to go on a new path for your career, whatever it is. But it can feel overwhelming. And so I think that the business side of me wants to say to you, do it in incremental pieces. Pick one piece, focus on that for the week, and knock that out. And you'll start to get traction as you go, okay, that wasn't that hard. Now let me go buy the website and let me go get that done. And then, okay, that's not that hard and it's not that big of an investment. And it's not like I have to build the website today. It's all these little pieces that we're going to walk through today to help you start to build confidence in your abilities to run a business, because anyone can dream about a business, but actually the logistics to run a business, it's complicated. And even if you do already have a small business, maybe this will help you elevate your small business. It's some of these areas you have not done yet, or you want to go into a new channel. So I think that, we're so grateful for feedback because it helps us know what you're looking for on the podcast, and to just realize that you're not alone. We're not alone. It feels like we're talking to ourselves, but at the end of the day, there's a whole community out there that's kind of gleaning and in a way cheering you on. And I think that that's what we're here for, is to say, we're with you, we're partnering with you through it. We want to give you the tips and tricks so that you don't waste time when you're trying to set up your small business. And if you want to do it the right way versus the grassroots, under the table sales, that you're not going to get that here.
Right. Yeah. And I will say, just like the podcast, I mean, when we started, it was a little device, a couple microphones, and we were sitting on our dining room table.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, that was it. There was no video. There was nothing. But, we did a couple, and then we realized, hey, let's make a few changes, and we made a couple other changes. And, it's been a progression, and granted, it's been a couple of years now. But looking back, it's like we started with literally nothing, very, very inexpensive, and you just got to learn.
Yeah.
But we didn't wait till we had it perfect before we launched.
Yeah.
We just had to step into it and say, well, how bad could it be? And if it's bad, we can do another one. And it's the same thing with starting the small business. There's a lot of steps you have to take, but you got to start taking them.
Yeah.
Regardless of what they are, you have to start stepping into it. And maybe it's watching some videos or, listening to this, that someone that's been through it before can give you those couple of nuggets that you were just stuck on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of what we did last week on the Barn podcast, because in our minds, it's been a long time. The physical creation of what we have has only been 6 months. But it was a lot of progress. It was a lot of one step at a time. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And so, again, as Sarah said, we're going to break that down today on how you too can get started, whether it be a podcast or, specifically a small business, because that was the feedback. It's like, how did you guys launch this so soon? And I think that goes back to a lot of stories that I've heard. It's like, wow, how did you get this TV show, or how did you get this fame? No one knew about you, 6 weeks ago or last year, but hello, we've been trying to do this for the last 20 years.
Right.
It's not an overnight success. It's not that all of a sudden you were, you came up with an idea and now you're in front of everybody. It's like there's a lot of drudgery in the back that, no one's ever going to see, but it's part of the experience that's going to make you better and make your product better and make your story better.
Yeah, it's such a good point, because when people see you, what they see is you in the spotlight, and they're not seeing the hustle and grind that's happening in the dark.
Yeah.
And in all those years of planning and dreaming and growing
And
to get to
being
where
rejected.
you are, and rejection, to get to where you are today. And so whether your business is existing or whether it's brand new like the Barn, we're in the spotlight now. We put ourselves in the spotlight by saying we've launched, here's a podcast about it, here's an event, that's pulling ourselves to the spotlight. And so what we want to do is make sure that you have the infrastructure underneath you before you get to the spotlight.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what we talked about on part one, is that we built the framework while we were building the business and growing the flowers. And so that way, whether it made $5 or $50,000 in year one, it could do either.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it, because I don't have to build it later. So let's jump into how you start. And the first thing that we did was figure out what we want to call the business. And so you're going to go in, and we're going to have a lot of links in the show notes, and they're going to be examples for San Diego or California, because that's where we are. But you can find this in any state or wherever you are, by just Google searching. So we'll give you some samples of how we did it, and then you can apply it to your own area. So when you're talking about your name, if you're starting a business, no matter what business it is, if you're not using your legal name, your first and last name in it, then it is considered a fictitious business name. Unless you're already a corporation, then you have an articles of incorporation. But for this purpose, for most small businesses, you're not using David Suter Construction. You're calling it like we are, CBSI. And so that would be a fictitious business name. You're an owner, but you're not using your owner name.
And can I pause on that for a second?
Yeah.
Don't use your name in your business. And Michael Hyatt and Company, now called Full Focus, went through the same thing, where they changed the name of that business after many, many years because it wasn't about him.
Right.
And how could the business move on when he decided to move back? So personally, I wouldn't want my name in a business because I don't want it about me, but it's just something to think about. It's not, Suitor's Barn, Suitor's Barn or whatever that may be. I think it's, come up with a name that means something to you, but it doesn't have to be your name. And nor, my personal opinion, it shouldn't be, because it doesn't necessarily allow it to last generations if that's the direction you end up going.
Yeah. I think that is based on your business model. There are a lot of industries where your name is your credibility. So a lot of the arts, a lot of the photography, design, a lot of those types of ones will use their name, first
Sure.
and last name photography, or first and last name interior design. It does limit you on your ability to expand,
Yeah.
because you become the brand.
Right.
So part of your business model has to be, is this me? Am I the brand? Am I the face? Am I the forever? Or is this a company that's going to be able to cross generations, like you said, and not just be an individual? So that's something you think about in the process of building your name out.
Yeah.
You can change your name later, but our recommendation would be to find something that aligns with what branding you're trying to do. So a lot of people will do their first and last name floral design. But find something that matters to you, or
Yeah.
what's calling you. So when you're looking at your fictitious business name, typically this is your assessor, county clerk office. You'll look that up for your area. Like I said, there's a link in the show notes, and you can go in there and you can do a search, and you will do a search for the Barn San Diego, and you will find that it's currently owned by me. But if it wasn't in there, if there was no name in there, let's say you want to do, I don't know, flowers on demand. You would type in flowers on demand, and if it didn't come up, then you can apply for that name. If it does come up, then you're going to want to look for something else, or create an acronym or something that makes you different. And so that's, I think, the hardest part. I think
Yeah.
the hardest part is like, what identifies you? And so you are going to have to go in, and then there's a form on there, and you take it to your county clerk office. And like we said on the last podcast, I think it's the only reason newspapers exist, and because it has to be posted for 4 weeks in a newspaper. And anyone that wants to dispute that is their business name can do it. That's essentially what you're doing by posting it in a publication, a print publication, not online, a
Right.
print publication, to basically say, is there anyone that has an issue with me using this name, or they've never claimed it. You do have to do within 40 days of your first business transaction. If you're going to actually do transactions, you have to have a fictitious business name in the system. So I would recommend, that's one of the first things that we did to launch the actual, we're moving from hobby to business. And
Right.
and that's the biggest thing I want to say, is if you have a small business, a dream, and it shifts from hobby to business when you start making real money and treating it like a business.
Yeah.
And so get yourself in that mindset. Is this just a side hustle hobby that I'm going to do every now and then? Or is this a business that I want to build, grow, and expand? And so that is number one. You got to get the naming rights. You don't want to go, brand a bunch of stuff and then find out that someone else owns it. So the next one would be your business license requirements. This is not glamorous, people, but this is so important for you to figure out. Every city and county is different. And so again, I have put a link for California to the governor's office that has, this is our business platform of the Business and Economic Development page, which tells you when you type in your county or city, depending on what you are, and your type of business, what you need to do. It's going to tell you all the permits you need, the license you need, whether you're running into OSHA compliance or building construction permits, Whatever you're trying to do, there's going to be a link on there that tells you. And for example, for our small business, we do not get a business license because we're in an unincorporated area, but we do have to have a sales and use permit. That's the requirement for what we do. And that also becomes a resale permit to allow us to buy at wholesale pricing. There's a lot of different factors, but I would say for like 90% of people that are in any kind of small sales outlet like I am, if you're doing eBay or Etsy or whatever you're doing, or floral or farmers markets, this is going to be where you're at. You're either getting you're going to have a seller's permit no matter what you're doing. And then you're going to want to buy at wholesale.
And that was a simple process?
That actually was not that hard to do to get.
Once you find out where to go.
Yeah, once you find out where to go, and I think that's the beauty of it. Every state is different. It's not a simple process, I'm not going to lie, to understand all the logistics of how you pay your sales and use tax.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get a resale certificate. They do make that easy.
But I'm going to stop right there, because it is important that you spend the time to figure that out, because first year could be great. You could make $100, or you could make $10,000 on whatever you're working on, and you're like, yeah, score, this is great. I got my sales and use tax, blah blah blah. But have you accounted for that correctly in your taxes?
Yeah.
If not, and you're not prepared, that might hurt next year when taxes come around. So doing your homework and making sure, and talking to your tax person about, how do I account for this?
Yeah.
Very important up front.
Yeah, that was one of the other things we did before we ever even started thinking about sales. Is we talked to our accountant and just said, here's what we're up to. And he was like, what? Another business? But for most people, you don't own a business. And so this is all new to you. And this can be your roadblock. Yeah. If you don't do this right, this can be your roadblock. And this will drive you away from wanting to do your business, because you may be great at the creative side, but you do not understand how to implement the business side. And so if you're not comfortable, then you may need to partner with someone who is, and bring someone in the beginning for a couple hours to just give you advice of, here's where I would go, here's what I would do. There's also great software systems, and I'll get into sales and use tax a little bit more, but there's a software called TaxJar, and they will essentially, it's like an app, and that you go in there and you'll enter I made $100 of sales today, and it will automatically start and pull out let's say your 7.75% sales tax. You're going to pull that out, and it's going to put it in a bucket for you. That's kind of what TaxJar is. It's going to put it in a bucket, and it's going to hold it for you when you have to go pay your taxes. Yeah. We don't use that one. I'll talk about what we use for our financial system. But sales and use tax was something we had to learn to master this last year. And like we've talked about, we had to learn to master it on a $1.5 million contract basis. And so it makes me really comfortable now with my $100 sales that I know what I'm doing. I wish it was the other way around, because it was really scary to start on a really massive scale versus what we're doing with the barn.
Go big.
The barn, that's not the barn. That is definitely not the barn. But sales and use permit is required. And so if you're doing anything with farmers markets, anything even if you are selling something that is a tangible product, you have to have a sales and use permit. I think that's the bottom line of that one. Yeah,
and we talked about this last week too. Venmo, easy to collect money, but again, they're going to come get you.
Yeah.
You are putting a money transaction on an electronic device. They will find you.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. So it works really good, and it's easy to be paid, and it's easy to transfer money to your bank account and all those things. But use it as a tool, but be prepared with how to pull the taxes out, so you know at the end of the year what you're going to have to pay back.
Yeah. And it's a really simple form. It's you can go in and you can get your resale certificate in less than 15 minutes. It's a fast process in California. You can do it all online. The challenging part comes when you have to actually start paying. And based on how much revenue you think you're going to bring in, you're either paying that monthly, quarterly, or annually. It's just like if you have employees. And so that's the sales and use tax one. Another example would be your employment development department, your EDD. If you pay anyone, as soon as you pay somebody, as soon as you have an employee and you pay them over $100, you have to now file with EDD. We do not have employees. That's the beauty of what we're doing right now. And I would not recommend that you have an employee anytime soon. If you're starting your small business and you're just trying to figure things out, you're not going to have the revenue for employees. Your better option would be to use an independent contractor to help you maybe build your website or build your financial system out or help you with your business plan rather than have an employee do payroll, wages, quarterly wage reports. There's a lot that goes into having staff.
Just use family because they're free.
Farmer Fred, your favorite. Commercial break. The other thing is a lot of people want to know if you've done anything in business or if you fill any forms out, you'll see this thing called EIN, and that's your employer identification number. You will not have that if you do not have employees. You will just use your social security number because you are the owner of this cool small business that sells stuff and you don't have employees. So that's where people are going to be like, well, I need your EIN number. It's like, well, I don't have employees, so I have a social security number.
Right.
So this is like the stuff behind the scenes that no one wants to talk about and no one wants to deal with. But the feedback we got was, hey, I want to know this.
Right.
How do I do this?
Absolutely.
I would say that as you're going through this part, I spent a couple of months going through this part. This is not, I'm going to go out and do all these things in 1 week and I'm going to own a business. It takes a couple of months. The fictitious business name takes 5 to 6 weeks for it to become all the way through because you're going to go file at the courthouse, pay your fees, then you're going to come back in and then you have to find a publication, let it go 4 weeks. And so that's while you're doing that, you can start working on your business license requirements. The next one is more David's area, thank God, because I can do the business side, but IT, I want nothing to do with it if I don't have to. So David, talk a little bit about getting your domain name and what that's like and setting up your email for your business.
Yeah, I think my journey has been the same where, and this has gone back several years at this point now, but it really helped me in being involved in a nonprofit organization and saying, sure, I can help with the website and sure, I can help with communications. Gave me the time and the experience to go through and build websites and communications and the social media and all those 9 yards. But also same with CBSI as we launched a website and have revamped it a few times. There are some things in the background that are a little bit difficult to figure out when it comes to launching it. And honestly, I used a lot of YouTube videos. Not only do we have someone that we go to, but I don't necessarily like to go to somebody all the time. If I'm really stuck in it, like if I press this button, there's no going back, and it might be harmful to everything I just did, and then I'll pump the brakes. But otherwise, it's like,
Go
okay,
for it.
I can, I'll watch a video. So when it comes to domain names, which is actually really simple, and I would say probably the hardest part with the domain names is there's a lot of domain companies that you can register with, but there are so many out there, and there's so many ones that are not real that it's hard to, did I pick the right one?
Pay somebody for something that's
is
not
this real? Did I,
Yeah.
go after consolidated building systems, but it doesn't really exist, or CBSI San Diego, our business address. But the one that was recommended to us and the one we use is called Names Cheap. And that's it. Names are cheap, and it's very...
Name cheap.
Name cheap.
Name cheap. There's a link to it.
Yeah, there's a link in the show notes. But it was really simple. It's simple to go in there and come up with a name, and you can do a search, and if it says that's not taken, then it's yours.
Yeah.
And we actually did that for the barn. When we launched the website for Lead with Coffee, we're like, well, let's check out the barn San Diego and see if that's available, and it was. And so we locked the name in a year.
2 years ago.
Or 2 years ago,
Yeah.
Before the business was even launched. So that one was pretty easy. Now, when it comes to actually launching a website, and there's a couple different platforms like Lead with Coffee, CBSI are off a WordPress platform, which has really much easier to use than it was 10 years ago when we first did it. But yours, Squarespace, right?
Uh-huh.
So for the business, when there's money transactions, she's using Squarespace. But again, these platforms have advanced themselves so much that it's more like working on social media than it is doing coding.
Yeah.
10 years ago, there was a lot of coding that was scary, and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. But now it's made in a way that it's easy to build.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you're going to have to go on to WordPress or Squarespace and purchase a website page. You've already created the domain name, and you plug it in there, and there's a lot of stuff in the background. And the thing that got me was the SSL security certificates and this copy and paste and all the stuff you have to do. What really helped me again was watching YouTube videos of how to put things where, or if you have somebody that knows websites, they can do this for you. And if you get frustrated at this stuff, have someone do it for you. This podcast is sponsored by CBSI. For the last 35 years, CBSI has helped customers navigate change in their organizations, whether they need a team to manage their construction projects or are planning a relocation to right-size their office space. With transparent communication and culture-building strategies, CBSI leads the leaders of organizations through complex projects. If you are in the need of a proven team, check them out at cbsisandiego.com.
So in our current business, we use WordPress, like David said, and it keeps evolving. Some of it is easy, and then some of it, if you have anyone work on your website, then there's code behind it, and it can get really complicated, and you can mess it up really fast. And so I originally started the Barn San Diego on WordPress because that's what I knew, and I actually found it to not meet my needs for the type of small business I was launching that has a commerce channel, which is a sales channel. I'm sure that there's different modules you can add into WordPress, and there's probably ways to do it, but the model we've been using in our current business is more informative and to get you to see our services more than to buy our services from our website. Squarespace was actually recommended because it is more in line with the type of industry and business that I'm doing. And so a lot of bloggers, if you have a blog, or if you want to do more of like what I'm doing and have your story, an area for blogging, an area for sales, and an area for events, that was more Squarespace. And so I started there. You can start for free, which is nice. And then as you start to move into, I want more features, then you start to pay. So I think right now, for everything that I'm doing, which includes the commerce side and sales, it connects in through PayPal or Stripe. It's $39 a month if you buy it without paying the annual plan, and it's cheaper for the annual plan. So it is an investment, but your website is the face of your business. And so I spent about a month building the website behind the scenes. And again, this is not my full-time job, so this is part of the hustle. This is part of when I'm not here doing CBSI, then I'm at home and I'm thinking about, or I'm writing the blogs, or I'm coming in here early and I'm building the Canva and finding the artwork.
Let's pause there too, because Canva is a lifesaver.
Canva is a lifesaver, and so is Adobe Stock. Two things you have to have if you're going to start your website. I think Canva, if you are doing anything in a business and marketing side where you don't have this high-end someone that knows InDesign or doing everything through Adobe Premiere, I use Canva. It's very simple. It is free. You can do a lot of stuff for free. You can pay a small amount to have more options available to you. I think we pay $10 a month for our pro part of Canva. I use it for everything. A lot of our podcast backgrounds, our digital course, everything we're doing with our blogs and marketing and graphics, we're running through Canva. And our social media, I do a lot of stuff through Canva.
Right, and the beauty of Canva, you can do big, bold things on your computer.
Yeah.
But honestly, when I'm doing the new faces for the episodes, I'm doing it all on my phone.
Yeah.
It's so simple. The app is so easy to use. So it is a tool that is worth every cent. And I think it's $12.99 a month or something like that. Not 10, but still, it's so worth
cheap.
it.
It's
so worth
so
it.
cheap. I actually did all the graphics for the barn. I built the logo on Canva. I did all the website banners on Canva. So if you go to thebarnsandiego.com, a lot of the graphics and images you see in there are built through Canva and uploaded up. So that's the beauty of it. It is made for you. It has you can also use it if you're not ready for a website. You can build your Facebook page out, build your Instagram page out, and you can build your logo over there in Canva and bring it in. And it actually has banners, Facebook banner. Like it will say Facebook banner, and then the size that you're creating. It has a background, it has different examples, and you adapt it to what you need. So you're right. Canva was essential for building the branding of everything, and I had to build all of that before I could build the website.
And you can also buy swag off of it too.
You can. So I built the brand, and then you can do stickers, postcards. I did the banner for an event that we have coming up here. Super reasonable. So not sponsored by Canva, but Canva, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So websites take time.
Yeah.
You can spend a lot of time getting into the weeds, or you can just start with this real high level website page that maybe it just has your about page and a sign up for my newsletter, or send me your email so we can get in touch. And maybe that's enough for you in the beginning. You don't have to have everything, but again, if you're going to be a business, these are all the things that you have to start to think about. So Squarespace works for me for what I'm doing. You can go check it out if it relates to what you're doing. And maybe you need to elevate your website. That's another thing. Websites are not those things that you just do once.
It's not static.
We have to go in all the time and be intentional about going into our current website and seeing, is it broken? Are the pages working? Is a project done and I'm still acting like it's in progress on my projects page where I'm trying to tell people what we're up to? It's a lot of updating.
Yeah, and then I'll pause there again, because this is one of the things that we found out for the association that we were supporting is it is better to put content on there that doesn't necessarily say in progress or something like that, because the more a website requires you to go back and constantly update, the more outdated your website's always going to be.
Yeah.
So on the items that always required, posting an upcoming event, make sure, if you're going to do that, that's fine, but make sure you have it in your calendar to go back and take that event off after it's passed. Because if someone goes onto your website looking for upcoming events and it's got 4 events listed for last year, it's like, oh, well, how much effort are they actually putting into this brand?
Yeah.
And so all those things are really important. So what we did is try to make things that are automatic, where if you send something out in Constant Contact, that it automatically updates the website. And there's a lot of different, I don't want to get too deep into it, but there's a lot of ways
did.
I know there's a lot of, I'm just saying there's a lot of ways that you can create something that is automatically updated from somewhere else.
Yeah. So let's step it back. We went big into you've been in business for 5 years and you're doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Let's step it back to year one. A good resource for you, Canva is a good resource because the pictures on Canva are pictures you can use on a website.
Yep.
You cannot go, let me say this very clearly, you cannot go out and search and find a picture on the internet, right click and save it, and put it on your website.
Don't do it.
We saw a lawsuit come through to an organization we work with this year because they had a picture on a website that was copyrighted.
Like 7 years ago.
Like 7 years ago, and you can search. The image has a code behind it. So if you own that image and you find that it's being used by somebody, it can cost you, and this was upwards of $20,000 that they were wanting for the rights for this picture. So you use Canva or you use Adobe stock. If
Yeah.
you don't have your own pictures that you physically took yourself, which are not high quality. So if you go on our website, there's very few pictures on there that I have taken. They are high quality resolution photos from Adobe stock or Canva to build the brand. So Adobe stock is fairly cheap. You can go in and you can buy credits for pictures and you can pull them down and use it for a lot of different things. So again, we use Namecheap to buy the name of the website. And then it took 2 years before I built the website. So let me just tell you, like, if you have something that you're like, I know I want this name, it's $5 or something like that to buy it. It's so cheap.
Yeah, and the other thing with Namecheap is that's how you also get the email addresses for your business.
Yeah.
For your website. And there's a way in the background where you can check the emails, or you can easily forward it to your Gmail address or whatever you want to do, however you want to handle that. But that is where you get the email address that matches whatever your business is.
Yeah. So another piece, if you're thinking about your business or wanting to elevate your current business, is the financial system. There's a lot of financial systems out there. They're overwhelming. Everybody knows QuickBooks, and QuickBooks is a great platform. We use it for our current business. But again, we're a multi-million-dollar small business. So that's why we can afford to pay for QuickBooks and all the platforms that support within QuickBooks, of QuickBooks Time. You can do payroll, you can do invoicing, you can receive sales. There's a lot that you can do when you get into a higher level of business. For this starting for the Barn San Diego, I know QuickBooks like the back of my hand, but I'm not going to go out and pay $40 a month when I'm not making any money. That doesn't make sense for me right now at the state of the business. So I found something called FreshBooks, which is a kind of watered down version of QuickBooks. It's really user friendly. Anybody can do it, where QuickBooks really takes some knowledge and someone to train you on how to really do it right. And so FreshBooks is $12 a month or something like that. It's really inexpensive. But the reason I'm using it is because I want to make sure that when I go at the end of the year, that the business of the barn actually has reports and financials and all those things that I can take to my tax guy. Because remember, if you're launching a small business, you get to write off this business. But the only way you get to write it off, all those expenses for launching your business, is if you have good books. So it's worth the investment to pay $10-12 a month for something like FreshBooks, because you may be writing off $5,000-6,000 for your initial startup of whatever you're doing for your product or supplies or your equipment. And so it won't be what I stay on, but for right now, until the business makes enough money to make sense to move to QuickBooks, I don't need anything more than that. You could even do it on Excel. You could easily go in. You can go Google how to set up your financial records on Excel and track revenue and expenses. But you're going to miss a lot of the tax part, the good reporting part. But there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
As long as you have receipts and you're tracking, and then your income comes in and you're tracking it by event or product, whatever it is. The beauty with Squarespace is that Squarespace has a commerce platform. And so that's the sales platform. So it's tracking. I can put up, that I have my mimosas and mixed bouquet event. I have 10 that I want to sell. It will not allow anyone to sign up once 10 sign up. And then it will pull it off. It'll give me a record of sales. It'll link to PayPal. There's a lot integration, and that's why I did it. I want it easy. So if you have a QuickBooks and that's what you want to do, that's awesome. But be mindful that why would you go spend $700 a year on QuickBooks to get a lot of these things that you can get through maybe your website and your accounting system combined.
Yeah, agreed. Honestly, I think we covered so many things that people were wondering about, and maybe a few that they didn't even know that they needed to think about, which is great, and which is the whole point of doing this. And I hope that more questions come about. I hope that people are intrigued by, not intrigued, but motivated to maybe take that next step. Now that they've heard this, like, it is possible. And it is possible there are so many people that have businesses, successful businesses, because they started.
Yeah.
And we just encourage you to just take that next step forward. Maybe you can't tackle this all in 1 month. Maybe it's going to take you 6 months, but start tackling one step at a time. And, we'd love to be a resource for you.
Yeah, you can do it. It does feel overwhelming when you hear it all given to you in a 20-minute conversation. But one day, one piece, go click on a link, go find your name, go buy your website, and maybe in 2 years, you'll start launching your business just like we did.
We appreciate that you decided to hang out and spend some time with us discussing life and leadership. It would mean the world to us if you would share this episode on social media to increase our online presence. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a minute to rate it and review it wherever you listen. Mahalo!